Welcome to Property and Mortgage Insights Australia 2025. I'm your host, Virginia Graham, a mortgage broker, and today's topic is luxury properties in regional areas. Today I'm here with Jenna Shingles from FNQ Property, Hot Property, and we're going to talk about the Cairns property market. But before I do, I'd like to welcome Jenna here. She does the luxury properties here in Cairns, and if you're a person looking for a luxury property in this area, she's the person that you would go to. Welcome, Jenna.
Thanks, Virginia. So this is sort of a specialty area for us, for FNQ Hot Property. We have gravitated towards this area because it's our favourite lifestyle arena for Cairns. Cairns has much to offer, but we particularly like this Bluewater Harbour canal estate because it offers the ability to have your boat out the front of your home, just at the end of a jetty, and you can have deep water access out to the Coral Sea and beyond to the Great Barrier Reef. So it's the only canal estate in Cairns, so it's definitely one of the places that we gravitate towards, and it's the area that we specialise in. We've lived in here ourselves for 16 or 17 years now, in a couple of different waterfront properties, and we think that this is the best place to be in Cairns.
It's a really nice place if you have a boat, but also I think there's a lot of walks around here too. There's Earl Hill that you can walk up. There's Half Moon Beach, which is a beautiful isolated beach, which is where all the boats go out of the headland before they go out to the ocean. And it's just a really nice place to live in terms of it's very quiet, isn't it?
Yeah, and it is.
It's got the Bluewater Marina. It's got one sort of restaurant area.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And it's also very close to Cairns.
Yeah.
And it's halfway sort of between Cairns and Port Douglas, and it's got a shopping centre that's 5 minutes away as well. So, I mean, it's got pretty much everything, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And in addition to the walking tracks, it's also got great mountain bike riding as well up behind Smithfield. That's quite a world-class track up there, up behind James Cook University. So I know our son made use of that for years, and heaps of kids around here do, and also adults, because it's, fantastic for fitness. And the bike rides you can do right out to Palm Cove and beyond as well. And they're connecting up everything in Cairns to make it more bike friendly. So, yeah, it's got heaps of things going for it, in addition to our beaches.
So if you were not living in Cairns, say you were living in another state and you were looking at sort of moving here in terms of more of a luxury lifestyle, what would you like? Would you live here full time, or would you buy a house here and go between the two, or like what do people usually do?
You get a bit of both, really. Sometimes we get people who just spend sort of 6 months of the year up here in their waterfront properties or apartments in Palm Cove or in town, and enjoy the winter season up here, which is just spectacular, and that's why we live here. But then, go down for the southern summers. We do have clients that have the best of both worlds in doing that. So that is brilliant. But obviously, if you've got family, your kids at school and that sort of thing, which it is it's a really great area for families to live here permanently. That's obviously what you do, because we've also got some great schools around the area, Red Lynch and in town, and also in Trinity Beach as well, so and Trinity Park. So it's got something for everybody.
Yeah, I think it does. So how would the prices compare of, like, is it because if you're looking at the luxury end of the market, how do the prices compare to other areas that you would live in if you were, say, either having it as a second home or having it as a primary home?
Well, I think that the value is really quite good for a luxury property in Cairns. So when people are coming from Sydney or Melbourne, for example, if they're living in an equivalent area, it would be, it would have a much higher value. So I think when people do buy into the Cairns real estate market, they're getting real bang for their buck, because waterfront in Sydney is like, crazy prices. And whereas here it's quite achievable, sort of on the waterfront here in the Canal Estate is sort of looking from 1.7 million up to about 5 million. So that's the sort of range. Whereas in Sydney or Melbourne, you might be in an apartment for 1.7 million. So with a glimpse of the water. So I think up here, as far as having a permanent residence up here, I think that the value is great, really good.
And what do investors, from an investor point of view, what are they doing up here? Like, why would they buy here?
Well, we have our property values have increased over the last few years. It was pretty stagnant for quite some time. But I do think that since COVID happened a few years back, 2020 really changed things for the values and has made the investment market up here a lot better, a lot more inviting, because people recognise the value of the regional markets, and this, being one of our paradises in Australia, we certainly reap the benefit of that.
Because I noticed before I moved up around that time, before that, the capital prices in this area, in the Cairns area, hadn't changed in 30 years.
Yes.
And then since then it's doubled.
Yeah, that's right. It's really stagnant, and the GFC hurt. I think the regions get hurt a little bit more when there's big global issues like that and economic downturn. However, now strength has come back. So definitely it's changed from how it was before. So it has it's benefited us.
And what do you think are the driving forces that are now going forward for the market? Like, do you think, because I've heard some people say, for example, the Olympics, because it's now an Olympic city, that will help us. What else do you think is driving the capital prices here in the housing?
I think that we do have limited housing availability. Basically, we're surrounded by hills, so there's only so much of Cairns that can actually be built on. There's more cane paddocks to be, transitioned into housing and that sort of thing, but we are really locked in here because of the hills. And there's really restricted ability. There's not, you can't build into the hills anymore because of lots of regulations and that sort of thing. So, so I think that that's what drives our potential for the future.
And how do you determine the value of the properties within Bluewater? Like, so if you're an investor and you're looking here, or if you're for lifestyle looking at the luxury, what things would you look for? Like, what's the difference between a 1.7 million and 5 million property, for example? Like, what's the difference in the actual property?
Okay, so much like other properties, things start with the baseline of how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, living spaces and that sort of thing, and land size. So they're all the comparables. But then with waterfront properties in the canal, you're looking at meterage of waterfront. So in this particular estate, it sort of starts at about 12 metres being the smallest waterfront and about 40 metres being the broadest. So that is the big determining factor. So that is one part, and then you've got the pontoon where you can put the boat out the front. The size of the pontoon, so they range from about 7 metres to 14 metres and beyond. So that regulates what size boat you can have in front of the home. So that's one of the big determining factors as well. So that's why a lot of the end of quay properties, so the streets are called quays, they tend to have a bit more value because they've got the broader waterfront.
Yes.
And the ability to put a bigger boat on that pontoon. So, it really, the boat size that you can put out the front often determines who will buy the home.
Yeah.
And the value of the home.
And then, because I've noticed that some of the houses here are very beautiful houses, and 2-story, 4 bedrooms, and have a pontoon, and then another house will be pretty similar size looking and everything, and it will be like double the price, and you'll be like, why is that one double that one?
Yeah, that's it. So that's what it comes down to. Often it's
pontoon.
the size of the boat that you can put out the front. And, you know, when people come to us, and we often have people looking that, you know, they might see a home that they like, but it's just not going to work for their boat, and that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think this is also a safe harbour, isn't it?
It is, yes. So this was built to a Category 5 cyclone, so to speak. All of the homes are built to the rating that's required, but this actual structure of this canal has a certain rating to it as well that is higher. So what it means, in a practical sense, is that when there is a cyclone, you can keep your boat in front of your house because it's got a rating that allows that. However, if you had your boat in the Marlin Marina in Cairns, or if you had it in the marina in Port Douglas, or even Yorkeys Knob Boat Club, you have to move your boat away from its berth and anchor in somewhere safe, like up an estuary or that sort of thing during the cyclone. So that is one of the great things. It's a bit of a safe haven.
Yeah. That was actually, I didn't even know that. But that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And then, so what common challenges do buy and sellers of Bluewater properties face, and how can they overcome them? Like, what are the challenges?
Yeah, so the challenges, I mean, essentially, I guess it's finding the home that's right for you, that also accommodates the boat that you may have or wish to buy. And also, you want to, there's the difference. You can buy a pontoon. Some of the properties have shared pontoons. So that has an easement at the base of the jetty. So that's something to look for if you want to have exclusive use pontoon or a shared pontoon. That's something to be aware of, and again, that's really important to speak with a specialist about, so you sort of know what you're in for there. So that's one of the challenges, I think, is meeting the home expectation and the size of the boat and pontoon.
It does matter a lot too with the pontoons, because I didn't know, because we'd never had anything to do with boats before we moved here. But it's not just the pontoon; it's the distance from the centre of the water line as well as to where your boat can go.
Yeah,
and we didn't realise that some people are allowed to put their boats on the side of their pontoons, and some have to have them in the front because of where the waterline is compared to where your neighbour is. Yeah. So there's like rules around where everything goes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right. And it is, it's a bit of a, by agreement type situation too. As long as nobody's complaining, everything's fine. It is a bit of a wiggle, and again, that's something where you need to be speaking to somebody who knows about the key lines for the sites of the property and that sort of thing. Yeah.
And I know we've touched on this before, but what do you think? Where do you see the market going in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, it is a crystal ball kind of question.
Yeah.
So that's
and this is obviously we never hold you to anything. It's just you personally. Yeah. What do you think?
That's it. Well, obviously we believe in the area. We're invested in the area as well. So we think this is the best place to have your money invested in property. And the reason being is because the limited amount of properties that are available. So 150 properties on the water side, and then approximately 80 properties on what we call the dry side, so the other side of the road. Again, beautiful properties and sort of going for about $1 million and up mark now, which is great. It's part of that growth that we've had. So we think that, I guess, the limited, for example, right now there's about 2-3 properties on the waterfront for sale. We know there's maybe 1 or 2 coming up off market, and that's what determines the values, we think, moving forward, is just the sheer limit of properties available.
And I don't know who told me it. Someone said that they weren't allowing canal developments anymore. Is that right?
Yes, as far as I understand, and you can never say never. However, for the last 16 years we've lived in here, and we've watched a couple of canal estates tried to get approved, but they've been knocked back. And one of them was a very large Chinese developer wanting to tap into a waterway and an existing waterway, and they've knocked it on the head. So the EPA, the state government and the local government, very strict about those rules now. So I did hear that even Australia-wide, it's they're pretty critical about this sort of development and sort of doing anything that's tapping into the natural waterways. So I think, that's a good thing, and that does bode well for the future, again, keeping things very restricted and keeping the prices up.
So what advice would you give to buyers if they were looking at Bluewater now, if they had never been here? Like, do you think they should come? No, I'm not saying just that they should come, but what would be the best advice of like what things should they be looking for?
Well, I guess the reality is if you have any interest in it whatsoever and maybe thinking for the future, we might retire up here or that sort of thought, I would say get into the market now, because the reality is it is so restricted, and we do feel that the prices will just tick away and continue to get higher and higher. So I would say to get in sooner rather than later. Yeah. If you find the right property that suits you.
Yeah. And I can say too, from when I remember when I was looking here in Cairns, in the Cairns region for properties and things, I think you were the only agent that even called me back. Like a lot of people, it's been so busy here that people don't even call you back. It's not a high pressure thing, like telling when Jenna's telling you to look now rather than later. She's not saying that from like a pressure point of view.
No.
It's just like, it genuinely is a time to look at it if that's something you're interested in. And also it is still much, much cheaper than if you bought it in Sydney or in Brisbane or the Gold Coast or any of those places. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, the value is still here. So but I think it will continue to go up. So
and I think having a safe harbour in a cyclone area too is really important.
Yeah, that's right. We've been here through a couple of cyclones, notably Cyclone Yassi in 2011. And, they had all sorts of doom and gloom concerns, but it fared really well, which was great. And even with, we should talk about the issues, because people do ask these questions. They're very important. And so we had Cyclone Jasper last year, which mainly caused flooding issues in the Cairns region. And in here, there was very minimal damage with the flooding. So most of the revetment wall is up high enough that there wasn't any, very little anyway. There was a few homes that had a little inundation because of they were built down in the basement level and that sort of thing. So there's a little bit of that. But generally it was very safe. So we felt very well tested by Cyclone Jasper. So it was good, sort of 1 in 100-year event. So
which we hope to never see again.
No, it was a little bit scary. But we fared very well, which is great. Cairns itself is in quite a dip, and then you've got a few of the beach areas which are quite low lying, and so they struggled. People would have seen that on the news, and flooding at Yorkeys Knob and that sort of thing. So that's more your beach erosion and getting into those low-lying older suburbs that haven't had new developments on them for years and years. So they haven't been built to the requirement that the council has now. So
okay, that's fantastic.
You're welcome.